Hey guys, my name is Emma and today I'm doing the 25 Bookish Facts About Me tag. So I was tagged in this by AmyGetsLit and I will link her video down below. So we're just gonna jump straight in. I've had to write them down because I have a bizarrely terrible memory for things about my own life. So first bookish fact is that the first book I'd consider to be a favourite of mine is Enid Blyton's Shadow the Sheepdog. This is if Black Beauty was a sheepdog instead. It's got that real told from the dog's point of view perspective, and it's just a really lovely tale, and I made my dad read it to me over and over and over again. Fact number 2 is no surprise with anybody in my generation, but I was obsessed with Harry Potter when it came out, and we're talking like hardcore into it. Me and my dad made me a wand, we made a papier-mâché cauldron at one point, I made a Marauders map and tried to work out the actual layout of Hogwarts, which is impossible because it moves. That gave me a massive headache. I went all the way through the books and found all the potions ingredients, and then we found ways to kind of make our own versions of them, and then I wrote out as many of the potions recipes I could find. I had every book ever that was even vaguely linked to it, like every quiz book, every extra thing. I was so obsessed. Fact number 3 is, even being super obsessed with Harry Potter, it was not my favourite series when I was growing up. My favourite series is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. Fact number 4, going back to the idea of making things that are found in the books, I also made myself one of those book boxes that is listed in Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. So the main character in that, I think her name is Meg. The girl, she has like a really lovely box that she keeps all of her books in, and it's sort of satin lined on the inside, and me and my dad one day decided to try and make our own version of this. So we got like a cardboard box and lined it with velvet, and I was so pleased with it. Like, it could only keep like 4 books, but I would use it to store my 4 favourites at the time. Fact number 5 is that I have 2 bookish tattoos. So on my thigh I have a poem by E.E. Cummings. It's one of his postmodernist, slightly weird poems that is mildly like gobbledygook, but actually in theory when you read it out loud it sounds a bit like having an orgasm. It's a great thing to have on your body. And then at the top of my neck I have a quote from Atonement by Ian McEwan. So yeah, those are the 2 bookish ones I currently have. I'll probably get more, and I've got about 7 or 8 tattoos in total. Fact number 6 is I wanted to be a writer when I was younger. I think a lot of people go through this if you are a big fan of books, and these are some of the things that I did to help further that dream. I did an OU creative writing course when I was doing my A-levels. It was a level 2 one, and it took about 6 months give or take, and it was really, really good. I definitely recommend checking out some of the OU's courses if you are interested in that kind of thing. We did a lot of work on short stories and biography and poetry, and it was just a really phenomenal experience. I also wrote for an online webzine called Mookie Chick. I have no idea if they're still around. Feel free to Google and see if you can find some of my old work. I wrote for them when I was probably about 14 or 15, and it was a couple of book reviews, a discussion about the book movie film adaptation kind of idea. I interviewed an author via email, and yeah, generally they were all bookishly related. I don't remember the quality being particularly high, but I do remember the end of my little bio said, "You'll see her name in lights one day," which is the kind of thing that you can write when you're an angsty teenager, isn't it? I also did the National Novel Writing Month 2 years in a row. I did it in 2010 and 2009, 11, somewhere around there. My first story was a pirate story set on the high seas in a fantastical world. I wrote about 80,000 words for it, and it is the most angsty emo thing you've ever heard. Like, every character has multiple deaths in their families, their backstory. It's just tragic and heartbreaking, and I read it back once and there's nothing worth saving in that. The second year my dad and I decided to do it a bit differently, and we decided to do it as you just kind of drew prompts out of a hat literally the night that NaNoWriMo started. So I ended up doing a weird sprawling historical fiction about some kind of art scandal in the Second World War in Sardinia, and then an art history student who was finding this scandal and how it linked in with her own life. But the problem was I didn't know enough about art history or the Second World War or Sardinia to pull off any of that, so I just kind of got to a point where clearly the big reveal needed to happen, and I didn't have the time to research it because it was NaNoWriMo, so I just padded until I hit 50,000 words and then abandoned it mid-sentence. But it was wicked fun. I'll link NaNoWriMo down below if you've never really heard of it before, but it's an excellent way of exploring writing. Oh, I was also published in an anthology about punk when I was 12, so it was kind of an anniversary of punk, maybe 25 years or something like that, and there was a just general call output for people submitting essays or poems or short stories in one of the literary magazines that my dad gets, and he knew that I wanted to be a writer, so he suggested that I give it a go. And I wrote this sprawling essay about like the ethos behind punk and what it actually meant, and it got accepted. I've no idea why, probably taking pity on the 12-year-old. And I got to go along to the, like, it was linked to a private art gallery showing as well, and I got to go to that and see like the book launch, and it was really cool. And again, you might be able to find it on Amazon, but my name is definitely not listed in any way on it, and I don't get any proceeds or anything like that. But yeah, I was published at 12. I did philosophy at university, and I have 2 books that I blame for that choice. Blame might be a bit of a harsh word. One of them I've talked about on this channel already, and it's The Pig That Wanted to Be Eaten, and it's by Julian Baggini, and this is a collection of thought experiments, which are kind of ideas and concepts behind philosophy that you get to analyse a bit more, and it gives you a really broad understanding of a really broad introduction to what philosophy is like. The other one is Sophie's World by Justine Gardner, which I think appears on pretty much every personal statement for philosophy entries ever, and it's a weird mix of a fictional narrative about a girl who is learning about the history of philosophy and then tries to escape the book that she is in because she doesn't trust the narrator. So it gets really weird and trippy at the end, but it's an excellent introduction to the whole history of philosophy. So the 2 books combined give you kind of a nice idea of what philosophy is about, whether you want to go from a historical point of view or more from the individual divisions and subjects within the field point of view. Both brilliant, and both the reason combined as to why I took it as a degree. My favourite genres, not that I'm very good at genres, but if I had to pick some favourite genres, I'd say that it's magical realism and speculative fiction. I like our world, but with a little tweak or twist that makes it a little bit different, and then you run with that idea. I also really like books that teach you something, even if they're just fiction. So books that get like weirdly intensely nerdy about a random subject, so my jam. Like, absolutely love them. My favourite plays are Journey's End, History Boys and Equus, and all 3 of them I think are just as good read as they are seen, but I have seen all 3 of them on stage at least once, if not more. Also, The History Boys is an amazing movie. It's got a young James Corden in it, and you totally should go and watch it if you've never seen it. My favourite author is Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King and writes a combination of horror and supernatural. I think his work is brilliant and is probably the only author who I can say I've liked the majority of what I've read by them. I have written fan fiction in the past, and I do still read it sometimes to this day. Some of my favourite fan fiction to read is things like The Hunger Games, and a lot of TV fan fiction actually as well, which I don't know whether that counts as a bookish fact or not. I wrote a long series about Harry Potter, but within the Marauders time, and basically it was Sirius Black getting a girlfriend when I was about 12. I think. I hope that no longer exists. It was on the platform Quizilla, if anybody can remember that. Like, that was really niche random fan fiction. Like, you had your proper stuff on AO3 and fanfiction.net, and then you had like random nonsense going on Quizilla. Yeah, I posted it there. It was terrible. It was also contains the first sex scene I ever wrote, and it was just as bad as you could imagine from like 13-year-old virgin. So yeah, that exists on the internet potentially. I used to work at the bookstore Waterstones. I worked at the Luton branch and the Milton Keynes branch through my A-levels, and it was awesome. Discount was amazing. Love Waterstones. Cracking store, cracking place to work. Because of my time working at the bookstore and just generally kind of now getting involved with booktube and things like that, I have a tendency to avoid anything that I consider to be overly hyped. I really don't like it when people say like, oh, you definitely have to read this book, go read this book is amazing, because I think it can't possibly live up to the pedestal that you've just now put it on. Whereas I much prefer books that either people haven't really heard about before, or people are potentially just like slagging off and saying weren't great, because you could be pleasantly surprised. There's a whole list of books that were really, really big during the few years that I worked at Waterstones, and I still can't really go anywhere near them yet, because in my head, like, I've seen them too much and I know the hype around them too much, and I just don't think I'm going to enjoy them, because all I can think when looking at it is all those like preconceived ideas that surround it now. One of these most definitely is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I think it'd be really cool to read, but I can't go anywhere near it because it was right in that craze where I worked in the bookstore. My favourite place to read is the bath, and tragically this flat doesn't have a bath. Like, how heartbreaking is that? But I absolutely love a really warm bath, loads of like bubble bath or a bath bomb or whatever, good book, glass of wine, 45 minutes, that's me happy. Like, that's just Emma, absolutely content. But despite having a favourite place, I can actually read pretty much anywhere. I can read whilst walking, I can like grab 10 minutes here or there if other people are talking around me. I can read on any public transport that you wanted. I can read pretty much anytime, any day, anywhere, not a problem, which is really helpful because if you can do that, you can snatch like 10 minutes here or there throughout your day, and next thing you know, you've actually read for an hour and a half, but not really had to sit down and block that in. So that's really good. I'm a massive mood reader, as you'll know if you've watched any of my attempts at TBRs in the past. I really struggle to stick to a specific reading list. I find it just makes it too much like school for me, and I like the freedom to be able to pick books. But I am enjoying the kind of readathon is putting on me, having now started dabbling with them since joining BookTube, and I'm enjoying trying to narrow that down a little bit more, so I might try and make my TBRs a little bit more focused in the future, just sort of challenge myself potentially. I come from a really big family of readers, so I wouldn't say that any one particular relative was the person who turned me on to reading, nor was there a particular moment in my life where I became a reader. Reading was just something that was a thing in my household. Both my parents are avid readers. Both their houses had huge collections of books in them. It was just something that was kind of expected growing up, and pretty much all of us read now as well. I can also read lots of books on the go at once. So I, at any given point, probably have anywhere between 3 and 5 books on the go. I think my record so far has been having like 9 books on the go at once. And those are ones that I'm like actively reading, not just ones that I started and put down and haven't touched in like 3 weeks. I can jump between them quite easily, but what I can't do is I can't back-to-back books. So if I'm reading a book, I can't put it down and pick up another one. Even if I finish that book, I have to have something that breaks up that event in my head. So even if it's something as simple as like getting up and going and making a cup of tea, or spending half an hour like on my phone or doing something else, I have to have an interlude between, because otherwise my brain's too busy being in one world and it can't fit into the other. It just finds it really jarring. I think this is why I really struggle with short story collections, because it's quite difficult to like put those breaks in. It makes for quite short reading stints, but I can't just run them continuously. But one thing I did find in the last readathon that I did was I was listening to them on an audiobook, and I found that really helpful because I could just flick from audiobook to the radio, listen to like 3 or 4 songs, and that was enough to kind of give me a palate cleanser, and I could jump back in. So I am thinking about exploring more audiobook based short stories in the future to see if that helps me with the format. And my final bookish fact for you is, despite the Jurassic Park franchise being my absolute all-time favourite when it comes to movies, I love them. I will not hear a bad word about them. I know they're trash, but they're the best kind of trash ever. Despite all of that, I've not actually read any of the books yet, which is faintly baffling because these have been my favourite movie franchise since like they first ever came out. So I am trying to rectify this, and I do have Jurassic Park #1 by it's Michael Crichton or Crichton on my shelf, and I'm gonna try and get to it in December because I need to fix this like lapse of judgment in my life. And that's pretty much it from me. So I hope you enjoyed learning bookish facts about me. I think there was 25 in there, give or take. They kind of ran together in a few places. So I need to tag some people. So I can't remember any of your handles because I am the worst at names. I'm going to tag 3 different people and they will be down below. So go check them out. They will be awesome people who you should definitely be watching. I will tag down below. Life will be great. Thank you again to AmyGetsLit for tagging me in this. It was awesome fun to do and surprisingly hard to think of 25 facts. I will see you guys soon. Have a wonderful week. Happy reading, all that jazz. And yeah, that's it from me.